Hello everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a video that is pretty different for my channel. I got this idea from Kayla from Books and Lala. I will link her channel either up in the cards above or down in the description below. She is by far one of my favorite booktubers. She is also one of the most innovative creators in this little booktube community that we have going on YouTube. And she does these videos where every 3 months she talks about her quarterly favorites and reading stats. And so I kind of took that idea and ran with it a bit because I am going to include some favorites in this video that Kayla didn't really talk about. She mainly focused on just her reading, but I thought it would be fun if in this video I not only talked about the top 5 books I have read in the past 3 months, so from April to June, but I also wanted to talk about some of my favorite TV shows and movies that I've watched in the past few months. And I also want to talk about 2 or 3 videos that I am the most proud of that I created in the last 3 months. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get into it. I think I'm going to talk about my reading stats first. So I'm essentially just talking about how many books of specific genres that I've read and star ratings and different things like that. So as far as total books that I read from April to June, I read 67 books total. And then just a couple of other fun facts. The shortest book that I read is Cast Long Shadows by Cassandra Clare and another author. I'll put the picture of the book over here, and I think that was about like 65 pages or something like that. And then the longest book that I read in this quarter was A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J Maas, which of course is the 3rd and final book in the Court of Thorns and Roses trilogy, and that book is 699 pages exactly. As far as star ratings go, I have no 1-star books. It's very unusual for me to rate a book 1 star because if I really am hating a book, I will usually just DNF it, which means did not finish. So I don't have any 1-star ratings for this quarter. As far as 2 stars, I have 2 2 stars, 13 3 stars, 29 4 stars, and 23 5-star reads, which is quite a lot for me. I've been reading a ton of incredible books this year so far. I've talked about this in I think my mid-year book freakout tag, but this reading year has been vastly different for me than 2019 was. In 2019, I just wasn't reading a ton of 5-star books. I was reading a lot of books like 4.5 stars. There just weren't a lot of books that I was reading that were quite to that 5-star level. So this year, I think maybe I'm just getting better and better at discerning my own reading tastes, and so I'm getting better at picking books that I know I'm going to love, and I think that's the reason why I have so many 5-star reads. So then in terms of genre, I read 39 adult books and 28 YA books, and this is a bit different too from last year because last year I definitely read more YA, and this year I'm reading a lot of adult, mainly because I'm reading a lot more adult romance, whether that be historical romance or contemporary romance. So I've read 17 fantasy books, 12 science fiction / dystopian books. I have read only 5 mystery / thriller books, which that is something I definitely need to change in the coming months because I do really enjoy mystery / thriller novels. I do have some e-arcs from NetGalley that are thrillers that I cannot wait to get to. I've read 18 adult contemporary romances. I have read 13 historical romance novels. I have read 9 arcs. If you don't know what an arc is, that's an advanced reader copy, and I get e-arcs from NetGalley, which I just referenced. And then I've read only 1 nonfiction book, and I wasn't even going to include that stat on here, but I have been getting more and more into reading nonfiction, so I'm really curious to see how many nonfiction books I read in the next 3 months. And then I do have 3 videos of my own that I want to bring up in this video as far as the videos that I am the most proud of that I created. So the first one is my books that make me happy video. It's also titled Laugh Out Loud / Feel Good Books. I will link that up in the cards above. I love this video so much because not only do I not do recommendation videos that often, but this video just makes me so happy every time I see the thumbnail because all of these books make me happy, obviously. I actually do go back and watch my own videos, and that is a video that I tend to gravitate towards more than some of my other videos. I'm also really proud of the 2 tier ranker videos that I have made so far this year. So the first one I made was tier ranking Harry Potter characters, which is kind of yikes now that I have kind of disowned the Harry Potter series because J.K. Rowling is the worst, but I'm still really proud of how that video came out. Tier ranking videos are the most difficult videos to put together of the videos that I make because, you know, you have to do like screen recording and I have to also record, you know, on my camera. And so not only do you have to splice those two things together, but editing those videos, it just takes a lot of time, but I definitely think that it's worth it. And then the second tier ranker video that I've made is tier ranking all of the series that I have ever read. I will also link those videos up in the cards above. All right, so before I get to my top 5 books of this quarter, I thought that I would quickly mention some TV shows and movies that I've really been enjoying. So as you can probably tell, I spend most of my time reading, definitely. I only really watch TV shows right before I fall asleep at night, basically. So it takes me quite a long time to get through like an entire season of a show. First, I do want to bring up the one movie on this list, and that is The Hate U Give. And this is, of course, the film adaptation to the phenomenal book by Angie Thomas. I finally watched this movie, and I'm so glad that I did. I do think that it is a very, very strong adaptation. I will say there were a couple of things that I didn't really like in terms of some scenes that they added in the movie that definitely were not in the book that I didn't really think was necessary, but I mean, that's a pretty small complaint. Overall, I do think that it's a wonderful adaptation. I loved all of the actors. I thought that they portrayed their characters absolutely perfectly. It's such a powerful movie, just as powerful as the book. I would of course recommend read the book and watch the movie, but if you're someone that doesn't read all that much, because I know that some of my viewers watch my videos for me and not necessarily because they read books, I would definitely recommend watching this. Then I have a couple of Netflix shows that I want to talk about. So the first one is Never Have I Ever, and this is a show that was created by Mindy Kaling. I think this was released a couple of months ago, maybe in May, I want to say, the first season at least, and they just announced that they are coming back for a second season, which I am so excited about because Netflix tends to put out a lot of pilot seasons and then they just canceled the shows. Like, I fell in love with the show Spinning Out about a figure skater who does have bipolar disorder, and there's definitely other things going on in that show, but they ended up canceling it after such an incredible first season. So I am just so over the moon that this show is getting a second season. To give you a basic premise, this is about Devi, and she is an Indian American teenager. Her parents are from India, so she is a first generation Indian American teenager, and it's essentially all about her life in high school. I love this show so much because of the amount of diversity that we have going on. There's even some great LGBTQ plus representation, and I don't know, I think that Mindy Kaling and the whole team, they have definitely nailed it with this show, and I'm so excited to see what they do with season 2. And then the other Netflix show I want to bring up is Dear White People. I watched the entire first season of this show in June, and I just started season 2 maybe a few days ago. I think I've watched a couple of episodes of season 2 at this point, and wow, is this show incredible. And shame on me for waiting until now to watch it. Who knows why I've waited till now, because so many people have been raving about it, and I'm just so glad that I finally gave this show a shot. I'm gonna read you a little blurb that I found online because this is gonna be easier than me summarizing the show myself, but it's based on the acclaimed film of the same name, which I need to watch that film now that I'm thinking about it. This Netflix original series follows a group of students of color at Winchester University, a predominantly white Ivy League college. Students are faced with a landscape of cultural bias, social injustice, misguided activism, and slippery politics. Through an absurdist lens, the series uses irony, self-deprecation, brutal honesty, and humor to highlight issues that still plague today's post-racial society. And that description totally nails this show. I just love the vibe that we have going on. I adore all of the actors. And this show is just so real, and I love the atmosphere of this Ivy League college and the issues that this show tackles. And yeah, if you are someone that has been stupid like me and hasn't watched this yet, like, what are you doing with your life? All right, and last but not least, I'm going to talk about the top 5 books that I have read in the last 3 months. I don't really have a particular ranking, like I don't have a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 kind of ranking, so I'm just gonna pull from this stack, I guess. So the first book that I want to talk about is The Prince of Broadway by Joanna Shupe. This is by far my favorite historical romance that I have read in the last few months. I loved it so much. I just have a soft spot for all three of the books in this series, actually. The first book is The Rogue of Fifth Avenue. This is the second book, and then The Devil of Downtown is the third book. And so this series is called the Uptown Girls series, and it centers around three sisters in the 1890s in New York City. And this one in particular centers on Florence, who's kind of the bad girl of the three sisters. She's definitely the more outgoing, the more scandalous of the three. And she wants to open her own all-female casino, because in this time in the United States, it was illegal for women to be in casinos in general, and then having a female-only casino would just be absolutely unheard of. So I just love Florence's ambition, and that she really does have a business plan. And so this one casino that she's been going to, this man Clayton Madden runs it, so he ends up being her mentor, and a romance ensues, of course. And what I loved about this book in particular was just how much fun it was. Like, there's one scene where Florence ends up dancing as a burlesque dancer to get Clayton's attention, and that's just such a fun time. And also the chemistry between Florence and Clayton was everything. The smut was amazing. Joanna Shupe just knows what she's doing with the smut in her books. So I wholeheartedly recommend all three of the books in this series, but if I only had to pick one to recommend to you, it would for sure be The Prince of Broadway. The next book I want to talk about will be no surprise to any of you, and that is going to be Undercover Bromance by Lyssa Kay Adams. This is book 2 in her Bromance Book Club series. You guys probably know by now how obsessed I am with the first 2 books of this series, and the third book is coming out in October, and you can bet your butt that I pre-ordered a copy of it because that is how much I love these books. But this second book in particular, I thought was definitely a level above the first one, as much as I love the first one, because I gave that one 5 stars as well. I think what put this one over the top for me was the humor. Like, as funny as the first book was, I thought this book was even funnier. There's just crazy antics going on that I feel like some people are gonna read this and think it's just a little too over the top and a little ridiculous, but I personally love that kind of humor. So if you guys don't know what this is about, it's about this group of guys in Nashville, and they all get together to read romance novels to better understand their partners and spouses. And this installment is about Braden Mack, who actually founded the book club. He used to read romance novels when he was a teenager all the way through adulthood, and we follow Liv, who is a pastry chef, and she is the sister of Thea, who was the heroine in the first book. So that's how these two stories are connected. And essentially, Liv witnesses sexual harassment happening between her asshole boss and this young girl who's working as a hostess at the restaurant that Liv is a pastry chef at. And so she ends up getting fired for that. And so Mac and Liv end up collaborating to try to bring this guy down. And I could talk about this book forever, but what really put this book over the top for me was how much I laughed out loud while reading it. And I know some people were annoyed with Liv, but I don't know, I liked her character a lot, and I thought that she went through a considerable amount of character growth throughout this book. So yeah, cannot recommend it enough. Next up is Things You Save in a Fire by Catherine Center. This is a book that I've also talked about a lot on my channel at this point, so I'm sure some of you guys are sick of me at this point, but this is a women's fiction novel that centers around Cassie. She's a firefighter in Austin, Texas, but she gets a call from her mother, who lives in the Boston area, that she's having some health issues and she really needs Cassie to come live with her to help her out. And so she ends up getting a job at a fire station in the Boston area and living with her mom to help her out. So for one thing, her and her mom have a very weird and estranged relationship. So one thing I loved about this book was the development of her and her mom kind of finding their way back to each other. And then as far as her being a firefighter, she ends up working at this fire station that they've like never had a female firefighter at before, and so they don't know how to treat her. There's some kind of yikes things that they say to her and the way that they treat her, but you know, she's determined to prove them wrong and to prove that women are just as capable as men to be firefighters. And then there's this rookie named Owen, who he's brand new to the fire station, and there's there is a really adorable romance between Cassie and Owen the rookie. But this book completely surprised me, and I'm pretty sure this is gonna end up being one of my top favorite books of 2020. All right, and then finally I have two fantasy books to talk about. The first one is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This is the first book in the Six of Crows duology, and I absolutely adored this first installment. I've talked about this series quite a bit on my channel recently. I did a binge reading vlog where I binged the two books in this duology, and I will link that up in the cards above if you want to hear more of my in-detailed thoughts. But what really sold this book for me was the characters. If you don't know what this is about, it essentially follows six very different characters in this fantasy world. It's very Russian inspired, and they have to pull off a heist. And not only is the plot fantastic, but the six characters are so well developed, so well done. I also love the dark humor that we have going on in this duology. I was slightly disappointed by Crooked Kingdom, which is the second book, which is why I'm not listing it in my top 5, but this first book for me was absolutely perfect. Also, this is kind of a spin-off duology of her Shadow and Bone trilogy, but personally, I don't think it's all that necessary to read that series before going into this duology. But yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. I'm pretty late to the game in terms of reading this because I'm pretty sure this first book came out in 2015 and the second book maybe came out in 2016. So yeah, I'm probably one of the last people in this booktube community to have read this series, and I'm so glad that I finally did. And then last but certainly not least is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas. This is book 2 in her Court of Thorns and Roses series. And I definitely went into this book with pretty high expectations just because of how much the entire booktube community raves and raves about this second book. Everyone who loves this series says that this book is their favorite. And it also has an average rating of 4.65 on Goodreads, which is pretty unheard of. That's a very high rating. And when I was first reading this book, I was enjoying it, but it's definitely not the most fast-paced book. And so while I was reading it, I was just like, okay, like it's really good, you know. I didn't really see where this epic romance was coming from. That romance doesn't kick in until, I want to say, the last couple hundred pages. And so I was just like, okay, what's so great about this book? And then the romance finally kicked in and I was like, I get it now, guys. This is a fantastic installment to the series. Also, the ending of this book is absolutely insane. If you want to know my more in-detail thoughts about all 3 books in this trilogy, I will link my playlist under the cards above because I did reading vlogs for all 3 of these books. And while at the time I gave this 5 stars, I really enjoyed it. As time has gone by, I have loved this book more and more, and I've realized that I definitely need to reread not only the entire series, but this book in particular. And I totally understand now why so many people just reread this book over and over again. It's just that fantastic. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you would want me to continue on with this format of a video. I did have a lot of fun filming this video. I think it's fun to kind of keep up with my reading stats and also keep up with my most favorite books of a certain time period. I think I will keep this up, but definitely let me know your feedback down in the comments below. Also, definitely leave a comment below if you want to discuss any of the books that I brought up or any of the TV shows or anything like that. I love having conversations with you guys in the comments. I would also love it if you would leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you in advance if you do. And with that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!